Machiavelli didn't write The Prince to teach you how to play nice. He wrote it to show you how the world actually works. And there's a hidden layer in that book nobody talks about. A concealed philosophy about money, power, and wealth creation that goes way beyond politics. If you think Machiavelli only talked about manipulation and betrayal, you lost the game before it even started. What he really taught was this: how to turn nothing into everything. How to take raw reality, unfiltered, and bend it to your advantage. How to build a financial fortress from absolute zero, using strategy, timing, and emotional detachment. And that changes everything. Before we dive in, hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. You're gonna want this content saved. Let's cut straight through. Most people live inside an illusion. They think money is luck, that wealth is privilege, that you need to be born in the right place, know the right people, have the right last name. And while they believe that, they surrender the game. Because the truth Machiavelli knew, and the wealthy still know today, is that wealth isn't an accident. Wealth is architecture. It's cold strategy applied with surgical precision. And anyone can learn this. Anyone. But for that, you need to stop believing the stories they sold you. Machiavelli lived in a fragmented Italy, full of wars, betrayals, powerful families fighting over territory. He watched people rise from nothing and dominate entire cities. He saw others fall from empires built over generations. And he noticed something most people miss. It's not the strongest who wins. It's the most strategic, the most adaptable, the one who understands the invisible rules of the game. And this applies to war, politics, and especially to money. Let me tell you a story. There was this guy named Francesco Sforza, son of a mercenary. No noble family, no inheritance. But he understood something profound. Power isn't just inherited. Power is constructed. He started leading small armies, making strategic alliances, marrying the right person at the right time. And in the end, he became Duke of Milan, one of the wealthiest cities in Europe. From zero, strategy alone. Machiavelli used him as the perfect example in The Prince. And the lesson is clear. If you know where to step, when to act, and how to position yourself, you can build whatever you want. Now tell me something. How many times have you held back because you weren't sure? How many times did you wait for the perfect moment, the ideal condition, the divine sign? And while you waited, someone less prepared than you took the position, grabbed the opportunity, built the empire. Because that person understood the first principle of Machiavelli's money philosophy: imperfect action beats perfect intention. Always. You want to know how to build wealth from scratch? Then stop romanticizing the process. Stop thinking it'll be beautiful, that it'll be inspiring, that you'll wake up motivated every single day. You won't. Building wealth is messy. It's uncomfortable. It's full of decisions nobody will applaud. And that's exactly why most people quit. Because they want the reward without the blood. They want the throne without the war. And Machiavelli was crystal clear. There's no power without risk. There's no wealth without sacrifice. But look, there's a detail that changes everything. Machiavelli also said that fortune responds to those who act. He called it virtù, which is like a combination of courage, skill, and timing. And he said half of life is luck, half is virtù, meaning you don't control everything, but you control your preparation, your response, your ability to adapt when everything crumbles. And that's where the difference lies between those who break and those who build fortune. Let me give you a practical example. Imagine you're in a bad spot, financially. No money, no network, no resources. What do most people in this situation do? They complain, blame the system, blame the government, blame the family, and they wait for someone to save them. But the person who understands Machiavelli does something different. They look at the board and ask, where's the gap? Where's the space nobody's occupying? What skill can I develop fast that gives me an edge? Who do I need to know? What bridge do I need to build? And then they act, without asking permission, without waiting for approval. They simply move the piece. And look, I know this sounds cold, sounds calculated, but it's real. Because the world owes you nothing. The market owes you nothing. People owe you nothing. And when you accept that, when you stop waiting for fairness and start creating advantage, everything shifts. You leave victim mode and enter player mode. And players win. Now here's the part nobody talks about. Machiavelli had a brilliant view on resources. He said it's better to be feared than loved, but never hated. Translating to money, it's better to be respected than popular. Because popularity doesn't pay bills, respect opens doors. And how do you build respect? By delivering results, keeping your word, being someone who solves problems, not someone who creates drama. Seems obvious, but look how many people do the opposite. How many people want attention, validation, likes. But when it's time to deliver, they vanish. And then they wonder why they don't grow. The answer is simple: because nobody trusts them. There's a Machiavelli quote I really like. He said, "Men ought either to be well treated or crushed, because they can avenge themselves of lighter injuries, but cannot of more serious ones." This isn't about violence. It's about decision. It's about not staying in the middle. Either you're genuinely generous, build real alliance, help without expecting anything, or you're genuinely competitive, play to win, leave no space for the adversary. What doesn't work is staying in between. Being half friend, half competitor. Being half committed, half scattered. That kills you. Because you build neither loyalty nor respect. You become irrelevant. And let me tell you something that might sting a bit. Maybe you're broke, not because there's no opportunity, but because you're playing the wrong game. You're trying to be loved by everyone. You're trying to please. You're afraid of upsetting the boss, the market, the family. And while you're afraid to disturb, someone braver is taking the space, making the offer, building the brand, charging the price, without apologizing. Machiavelli understood that power and money are siblings. One feeds the other, and he knew that whoever fears power will never have real money. Because money is materialized power. It's crystallized freedom. And if you're afraid of being powerful, you'll sabotage your own wealth. Unconsciously, you'll refuse opportunities. You'll charge cheap. You'll accept crumbs. All because deep down, you think you don't deserve more. And you know what's worse? This is taught. Society teaches you to be humble, not to stand out, not to disturb. But misinterpreted humility is self-sabotage, because there's a difference between being humble and being small. Real humility is recognizing you still have much to learn. But that doesn't mean accepting less than your worth. Doesn't mean staying quiet when you have something important to say. Doesn't mean lowering your head when you should be building the throne. There's a concept Machiavelli explored that's essential for building wealth: the art of appearing. He said it doesn't matter so much what you are, but what you appear to be. And this isn't about lying, it's about understanding perception. Because people don't buy what you do, they buy the idea they have about you. They don't invest in your product, They invest in the confidence they feel. And if you don't control the narrative about yourself, the market will create one. And it probably won't favor you. Look at the people growing today. Look at content creators, entrepreneurs, investors. They're not necessarily the best, technically, but they know how to position themselves. They know how to build authority. They know how to communicate value. And that, my friend, is pure Machiavellianism, because they understood that perception is currency, that reputation opens more doors than resumes, that how you present yourself defines how much you receive. But be careful. There's a fine line here. Machiavelli also warned about the dangers of appearing weak or indecisive. He said the prince who shows weakness loses respect. And in the money world, that's fatal. If you negotiate with fear, you lose. If you present your idea without conviction, you lose. If you charge for your work apologizing, you lose. Because the market smells insecurity. And insecurity has no value. So how do you build this presence? Simple. You act before you're ready. You speak before you have all the answers. You charge what you're worth before you feel you deserve it. Because confidence doesn't come before action. It comes during. You won't feel secure and then act. You act insecure and then security appears. That's the real sequence. And whoever waits to feel ready never moves. Let me give you another historical example. Cesare Borgia, Pope's son, but he didn't inherit anything easy. He had to conquer every piece of territory with brutal strategy. And Machiavelli was fascinated by him. You know why? Because Borgia knew when to be generous and when to be ruthless. He knew when to make alliances and when to eliminate threats. And mainly, he wasn't afraid to get his hands dirty. He did what needed to be done, without moral drama. And he built an empire, for a while. But here comes the most important lesson. Borgia fell, lost everything. And Machiavelli analyzed why. And the conclusion was this: he depended too much on luck, depended on his father's power. And when his father died, the structure collapsed. The lesson? You can't build wealth on unstable ground. You can't depend on a single income source, on a single client, on a single skill. Because when that source dries up, you're back to square one. True wealth is diversified. It's resilient. It's built on multiple fronts. This means you need to think like a strategist, not like an employee. An employee has one income source. A strategist has multiple. An employee expects security. A strategist creates options, and the difference between the two is striking. One lives in fear of losing their job. The other knows that if one door closes, they have 5 to open. So pause for a second and think. How many income sources do you have? How many skills do you master that can generate money? How many bridges have you built that could turn into opportunities tomorrow? If the answer is 1, you're vulnerable. And vulnerability in the money world is dangerous. But hold on. It's not about doing everything at once. It's about planting seeds. It's about starting small, but with intention. Learn a new skill, make a new connection, test a new idea, and keep building brick by brick, a financial fortress nobody can tear down. Because it doesn't depend on one point. It's a network. And there's one more principle Machiavelli hammered. Never show all your cards. He said the wise ruler keeps secrets, keeps mystery. Because information is power. And if you reveal everything you know, everything you have, everything you plan, you lose the advantage. In the money world, this translates like this. Don't tell everyone your plans. Don't show your money. Don't reveal your strategy. Work in silence. Build in the shadows. And appear only with results. Have you noticed that the wealthiest people you know are the ones who talk the least about money? They don't show off. They don't announce their plans. They simply execute. And when you look up, they're already 3 steps ahead. This isn't coincidence. It's Machiavellian strategy. Because whoever talks too much loses energy. Whoever shows too much becomes a target. And whoever reveals too much hands advantage to the competition. So remember this: silence is a weapon. Use it wisely. Now let's talk about something Machiavelli mastered like no one else: the art of forming alliances. He knew nobody builds anything alone. Nobody. You can be the smartest, the most talented, the most dedicated, but if you don't know how to form alliances, you'll hit the ceiling. Because real wealth doesn't just come from what you do. It comes from who you know, who trusts you, who opens doors for you. And this requires social skill, requires emotional intelligence, requires knowing when to give, when to ask, and when to step back. Some people think forming alliances is about flattery, about being fake. But it's not. True alliance is value exchange. It's you offering something the other person needs and receiving something you need. It's building relationships based on mutual respect and mutual benefit. And Machiavelli was a master at this. He knew the wise prince doesn't dominate through brute force. He dominates through the network, through connections, through invisible influence. And look, in today's world, this is even more powerful because information moves fast. Opportunities appear and vanish in hours. And if you don't have access to the right network, you're always chasing, always late, always getting the leftovers. But when you're inside the network, when you're part of the conversation, opportunities arrive before they go public. You hear about the investment before everyone else, the position before it opens, the idea before it goes viral. And that's worth gold. But there's a secret here. Alliance isn't maintained just through interest. It's maintained through loyalty. And loyalty is built with time, consistency, and character. Machiavelli said, "People remember how you treated them more than what you said. So treat well those on your side. Recognize them, value them, reciprocate, because the person you help today might be the bridge that saves you tomorrow, and the person you betray today might be the obstacle that buries you later." Let me tell you another story. There was a moment in Machiavelli's life where he lost everything. He was exiled, tortured, stripped of power. And you know what he did? He wrote. He used the time of defeat to build legacy. And the result was The Prince, a book that crossed centuries and is still changing lives today. The lesson? Defeat isn't the end. Defeat is redirection. And if you know how to use the low moment to learn, to reinvent yourself, to build something new, you transform crisis into springboard. This is fundamental for anyone wanting to build wealth from zero, because you will fall, you will fail, you will lose money, lose time, lose opportunity, and most people use this as an excuse to quit. But those who truly get rich use the fall as fuel. They analyze, they adjust, they come back smarter. And this cycle of error, learning, and evolution is what separates those who stay poor from those who get rich. Machiavelli also had a very clear view on time. He said the prince must act quickly when opportunity appears, because opportunity doesn't wait. It doesn't send warnings. It simply emerges. And if you hesitate, it passes and goes to whoever's ready. So tell me, are you ready? Or are you still waiting for the perfect moment, the ideal condition, the sign from heaven? Let me tell you a hard truth. The perfect moment doesn't exist. The ideal condition doesn't exist. The sign doesn't come. You act with what you have, from where you are and adjust along the way. That's the only real way to grow. Because while you wait, time passes. And time is the only resource you don't recover. You can recover money. You can recover reputation. But time? Never. And there's something else. Machiavelli talked a lot about adaptation. He said the ruler who doesn't adapt dies. And in the money world, that's law. Because the market changes, technology changes, people's behavior changes. And if you stay stuck in what worked before, you become obsolete. You become irrelevant. And then it doesn't matter how hard you work. Doesn't matter how much you try. You're swimming against the tide. So stay sharp. Observe the trends. See where the world is heading. And position yourself before the wave breaks. This isn't about predicting the future. It's about reading the signs. It's about perceiving patterns. And about having the courage to change direction when necessary. Because flexibility is survival. And whoever survives reaches the top. Now let's talk about a principle few people apply. Image management. Machiavelli knew that how others see you directly affects how much they trust you. And trust, in the business world, converts to money. If people trust you, they buy from you. They invest in you. They refer you. But if they distrust you, you can have the best product in the world, and it won't sell. And look, building image isn't about being perfect. It's about being consistent. It's about delivering what you promise. It's about not disappearing when problems arise. It's about owning your mistakes when you mess up and fixing them fast. Because people don't expect perfection. They expect honesty. And when you're honest, even in failures, you earn respect. And respect turns into referrals. And referrals turn into wealth. But watch out for a classic mistake. Some people try to build image without substance. They post pretty pictures, motivational quotes, fake lifestyle. But when it's time to deliver, there's nothing. And this explodes in their face. Because the internet doesn't forget. The market doesn't forgive. And when you're exposed as fraud, it's over. You burn the bridge. And there's no way back. So build for real. Develop real skills. Deliver real results. And then, yes, show it. Communicate. Position. But always with solid foundation. Because the best advertisement is the satisfied client. The best marketing is the delivered result. And nobody takes that from you. There's a concept Machiavelli explored that's brilliant for those wanting to escape poverty. The strategic use of cruelty. Hold on, it's not what you think. He wasn't talking about being mean to people. He was talking about being ruthless with what holds you back, with what sabotages you, with destructive habits, with toxic people, with the excuses you repeat every day. Because look, if you want to change your life, you need to kill who you were. You need to destroy the version of you that accepts mediocrity, that accepts excuses, that accepts less, and that hurts. It's uncomfortable, it's lonely, because you'll lose people along the way. You'll lose friendships, you'll lose comfort, but you'll gain freedom, you'll gain growth, you'll gain wealth. And nobody talks about this. Everyone romanticizes the journey. But the truth is that growing requires you to be cruel with your own stagnation, requires you to cut what no longer serves, even if it hurts, even if it's difficult. Because carrying dead weight prevents you from climbing. Let me give you a practical example. How many hours per day do you spend on things that take you nowhere? Series, social media, gossip, complaining, add it all up. Now imagine if you took half those hours and invested them in learning something new, in building something, in making connections, in testing ideas. In 6 months, you'd be a different person. In a year, you'd be at another level. But most people don't do this because it's easier to stay on autopilot. It's more comfortable. And Machiavelli would say, whoever chooses comfort chooses poverty. Because wealth requires constant discomfort, requires leaving the comfort zone every week, requires doing what scares you, what bothers you, what takes you out of control. And that's exactly where transformation lives. Now let me tell you about something Machiavelli observed that's essential. The importance of having a purpose bigger than yourself. He saw that leaders who fought only for personal power eventually fell, but those who fought for something greater, for a legacy, for a cause, those lasted. Those inspired. Those built empires that crossed generations. And this applies directly to money. If you're chasing cash just to show off, just to impress, just to prove something, you'll get tired, because there's no purpose, there's no meaning. But if you're building wealth to have freedom, to take care of family, to make a difference, to leave legacy, you find strength on difficult days. You find motivation when everything's heavy. Because the why is bigger than the exhaustion. So ask yourself, why do you want money? Really? Not the surface answer, the deep answer. Because when you have clarity on that, everything changes. You stop procrastinating. You stop complaining. You simply do. Because you know each action brings you closer to something that matters. And there's more. Machiavelli talked about the need to be loved or feared, but never despised. In the money world, this means you can be the guy everyone admires, or the guy everyone respects, but never be the guy nobody takes seriously. Because if you have no presence, if you have no weight, if you have no authority, you have no influence. And without influence, you don't build anything great. Authority doesn't come from shouting, doesn't come from imposing yourself. It comes from delivering consistency. It comes from knowing what you're talking about. It comes from having results to show. And when you have that, people naturally listen to you, naturally seek you out, and naturally pay you. There's something funny. Machiavelli said the prince should appear religious, even if he's not. And before you think that's hypocrisy, understand the point. He was talking about values, about ethics, about the fact that people want to do business with someone they feel is trustworthy. So it doesn't matter if you're religious or not. What matters is if you have principles, if you keep your word, if you're someone who honors commitments, because that's what generates trust, and trust generates business. But look, if you're fake, if you only pretend to have character, eventually the mask falls. And when it falls, you lose everything. So the best path is to be genuine, have real values, and live them. Because then you don't need to pretend anything. You simply are. And people feel that. Let me give you one more Machiavellian principle that changes everything. Never depend on someone who can destroy you. This is basic. But look how many people do the opposite. They depend on an abusive boss, a tyrant client, a toxic partner, and they're trapped, afraid, with no way out. Because if that person leaves, everything collapses. Machiavelli would tell you, build so you always have options, always have an exit, always have plan B. Because when you have options, you negotiate as equals. You don't accept crumbs. You don't lower your head. You simply choose the best path. And that's real freedom. So if you're in a situation where you depend on someone who mistreats you, diminishes you, exploits you, start now building your exit. Develop parallel skills. Network, save money, test ideas. And when you have the structure to leave, you leave. No drama, no revolt. You simply go to the next level. There's another point Machiavelli hammered, the importance of acting with decision. He said indecision kills more than wrong decisions. Because when you're indecisive, you lose time, lose opportunity. lose respect. But when you decide and act, even if you're wrong, you learn, you adjust, you evolve. And in the money world, this is critical, because the best opportunities have short windows. If you stay in doubt, analyzing 1,000 times, asking everyone's opinion, by the time you decide, it's gone. Someone else took it. So train yourself to make quick decisions with the information you have, knowing you might be wrong, but also knowing that failing while trying is better than succeeding while standing still. Now let's talk about something that separates those who stay halfway from those who reach the top: long-term mindset. Machiavelli understood that real construction takes time, that true power isn't conquered overnight, that reputation is built brick by brick, year after year. And most people don't have patience for that. They want immediate results. They want to get rich in 3 months, become an authority in 6, and when they don't, they quit. But those who truly get wealthy think in decades. They know the game is long, that each action today plants seeds to harvest 5-10 years from now, and they play with that vision. So stop looking for shortcuts, stop searching for magic formulas, and start building for real, with solid foundation, with clear strategy, with consistent execution. Because when you do that, the result is inevitable. It might take time, but it comes. If you want to continue this inner work with me, I've prepared a deeper path called the Wealth Recode, where I explain the 7 mental keys in detail. The link is in the description. It's for those who want to go beyond theory and actually reprogram the way they think about money, power, and wealth building. Now tell me, which teaching impacted you most? Which one will you apply first? Drop it in the comments. I read them all and respond to many. And if you have a similar story of overcoming, of strategy you used to start from zero, share it down below. We build together. And if you made it this far and haven't left a like yet, do it now. This type of content isn't for everyone, but for those who get it, it changes everything. And if you want to continue the journey, I recommend you watch the video about the psychology of power I made. There I go deeper into how your mind either sabotages or amplifies your ability to build fortune. It's right here on the side. This is the initiate. See you in the next video.